We like to think of history as a great grinding machine, an unstoppable force of economics, politics, and power. But what if it isn't? Every so often the machine stalls, the gears lock, and the entire future hinges on a single choice made by a single person. In the year 312, the Roman Empire, the greatest power the world had ever known, was tearing itself apart. A man named Constantine was about to make a choice, and that choice would echo for eternity. He was a general, a politician, and the son of an emperor, marching on Rome itself. There was just one problem. He was massively outnumbered and facing what looked like certain defeat. On the eve of the most important battle of his life, with his back against the wall, he did what desperate people have done since the dawn of time. He looked to the heavens for a sign. What he saw there, or what he claimed he saw, would not only decide his war, but would also shape the future of a global religion for the next 2,000 years. This is the story of the vision that turned a pagan emperor into a Christian champion and set in motion the conquest of an empire, might by the sword, but by a symbol. To understand the world of 312 AD is to understand chaos. The once mighty Roman Empire was a fractured mess. A generation earlier, the Emperor Diocletian tried to fix the constant civil wars by creating the Tetrarchy, a rule of 4 with senior and junior emperors sharing power. But a system built on cooperation quickly became a brutal, ego-driven contest. By 312, the dream was dead, and a bloody free-for-all had taken its place. At the center of the storm were two men. In Rome, the Emperor Maxentius held the ancient capital, and by many accounts, he was a tyrant. In the north, ruling over Gaul and Britain, was Constantine, the son of a previous emperor. He was a brilliant military commander, adored by his troops. When his father died, his soldiers hailed him as emperor, but in the tangled politics of the late empire, a claim was only as good as the army backing it. Constantine decided to force the issue. In the spring of 312, he did the unthinkable. He invaded Italy. He marched south, winning 2 key battles. But now he faced his final obstacle: Rome itself, defended by Maxentius and his elite Praetorian Guard. Here, Constantine's ambition slammed into a cold, hard reality. This was more than a power struggle. It was a collision of worlds. The old Roman system was failing. The traditional pagan gods, meant to guarantee the empire's glory, seemed silent. And in the shadows, a new faith was growing. Christianity, for centuries a persecuted and misunderstood religion, had taken root across the empire. Christians faced prison and death for refusing to worship the Roman gods, yet their numbers were swelling. Constantine, raised in a court that was relatively tolerant of Christianity, knew this. He knew the empire needed a new kind of glue to hold it together. He just didn't know what it was, until the day before the battle. On October 27th, 312 AD, the eve of his fateful clash with Maxentius, Constantine stood at a crossroads. His army was nervous. The odds were against them, and this, according to the legend, is when the miracle happened. The story comes to us from 2 Christian writers, Lactantius and Eusebius, and their accounts don't quite match up. Lactantius, a tutor to Constantine's son, wrote that on the night before the battle, Constantine was commanded in a dream to mark his soldiers' shields with a heavenly sign. He describes the symbol as the letter X, with a vertical line drawn through it, and looped at the top a monogram for the name of Christ. Eusebius, a bishop and a historian, tells an even more dramatic story he claimed to have heard from Constantine himself, years later, and under oath. According to Eusebius, it wasn't a dream, it was a vision. He said that around noon, as the day was starting to decline, he and his entire army looked toward the sun and saw a cross of light above it. With it were the Greek words Nu Tau Omicron, Y Tau Nu Y Kappa Alpha, which became famous in its Latin form, in hoc signo vinces. In this sign you shall conquer. Whether it was a dream, a vision, or a masterful piece of propaganda, we'll never know. But what happened next is history. Convinced he was now fighting under the protection of the Christian God, Constantine ordered his men to paint the sacred monogram, the Chiro, the first 2 letters of Christ's name in Greek, on their shields. For soldiers who had spent their lives marching under the eagle of Jupiter, this must have been a shocking command. They were being asked to carry the symbol of an outlawed faith into battle, and yet they obeyed. The next day, October 28th, the armies met at the Milvian Bridge, a key crossing over the Tiber River into Rome. Maxentius made a fatal mistake. Instead of waiting behind Rome's impenetrable walls, he marched his army out, arranging them with the river at their back. He had dismantled part of the bridge and built a temporary pontoon bridge next to it, maybe hoping to trap Constantine's army. The plan backfired spectacularly. Constantine's charge was ferocious. His soldiers, fired up by their new divine mission, fought with a fervor that shattered the larger army. Maxentius's lines broke. As his troops panicked and scrambled to flee back across the Tiber, the pontoon bridge collapsed under their weight. In the chaos, countless soldiers drowned, dragged down by their armor. Among them was Maxentius himself. His body was pulled from the river the next day, and his head was paraded through Rome, proof of Constantine's absolute victory. The man who had put his faith in a new god had won. Constantine's victory at the Milvian Bridge wasn't just a military triumph, it was a revolution. He entered Rome as a liberator, welcomed by a city that had despised Maxentius. In thanks, the Roman Senate commissioned a magnificent triumphal arch, which still stands today. In a brilliant political move, its inscription credits the victory to Constantine's greatness and the inspiration of the divinity, a deliberately vague phrase that both pagans and Christians could embrace. But Constantine's actions spoke louder than stone. In 313 AD, he met with Licinius, his emperor, in the east, and together they issued the Edict of Milan. This wasn't, as many believe. The moment Christianity became the state religion was something far more radical, a declaration of religious freedom. The edict officially ended all persecution and granted everyone, Christians and all others, the right to worship as they pleased without fear. It also ordered that all confiscated church property be returned. For the first time, Christianity was a legal, protected faith in the Roman Empire. This kicked off a seismic shift. Constantine became the church's greatest patron. The once secret hero was now emblazoned on the labrum, the new imperial battle standard. Imperial money funded the construction of magnificent new churches, including the original St. Peter's Basilica. Christians, once outcasts, were now promoted to high offices. Constantine's involvement went even deeper. When arguments over doctrine threatened to splinter the faith, he stepped in. In 325 AD, he convened the First Council of Nicaea, bringing bishops together from across the empire to hammer out a unified Christian doctrine, which gave us the Nicene Creed. A Roman emperor, who just over a decade earlier was a pagan, was now personally directing the future of Christianity. So the question that has echoed through the centuries is, was Constantine's conversion real? Was the vision at the Milvian Bridge a genuine miracle, or was it a calculated political masterstroke? No. The evidence is murky. Our two main sources, Lactantius and Eusebius, were Christian authors eager to cast Constantine as a divine champion. Eusebius even waited until after Constantine died to publish his full account, claiming the emperor swore it was true, a convenient way to shut down any doubters. It's also worth noting that Constantine had a history with visions. It's 310. A speechmaker mentioned him having a vision of the pagan sun god Apollo, promising him a long reign. Some historians argue Constantine simply repurposed this pagan vision for a new Christian audience. The political argument is strong. The empire was unstable. Christianity was a fast-growing, highly organized, and passionate movement. What better way to unify the state than by aligning with this rising power? By embracing Christianity, he could tap into a network that crossed all social and geographic lines, forging a new identity for a fragmenting world. In this view, it was a brilliant piece of propaganda. And yet, it's hard to dismiss his faith entirely. His actions after 312, the massive financial support for the church, building Constantinople as a Christian, New Rome, and his deep personal involvement in theological debates all point to a man who became a deeply committed believer. It was common at the time to delay baptism, to wash away a lifetime of sins, and he was formally baptized on his deathbed. Perhaps the truth is somewhere in the middle. Maybe Constantine was a pragmatist who saw the political genius of embracing Christianity, but who also came to genuinely believe in the power that gave him his impossible victory. The vision may have been the perfect storm where personal faith and political destiny collided. Stories like this one, where a single moment can redirect the course of civilization, are what make history so fascinating. If you want to explore more pivotal events that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and join the conversation. In the end, whether the cross of light was a divine miracle, a solar halo, or a legend spun after the fact, its impact is undeniable. The story of that vision became the founding myth of a Christian Roman Empire. It transformed a persecuted sect into the dominant spiritual and political force in the Western world for millennia. A general's desperate gamble on the eve of battle didn't just win him a war. It forged the faith of an empire and forever altered the course of human history.